Suppose I'll wait for them. Okay, Petronella. I'm just doing 5 minutes. So.
Okay, so you have 20 minutes to speak. So from 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much for having that. So Emily is going to be our first speaker after our tea break. So we're just going to have her, and then there's going to be one more speaker, and then we go for lunch. So thank you so much. So yeah.
Thank you, Petronella. Thank you. We are actually a 4-team group presenting, myself and then Natasha Muna, who's the coordinator of the Writing Lab at Health Sciences, Tahira Gullam-Hosen, who is a lecturer in the Department of Health Sciences Education, and Karis Moxley, who used to be a postgraduate consultant but has left us now to go and work in the Department of Psychiatry at Stellenbosch University. So, we are talking about the establishment of a language development unit and a writing lab at the Health Sciences campus. And I'm going to start by taking you through how we got to the idea of doing this. So this project was firmly research-based, partly through the work that I did as coordinator of Health Sciences language development for many years, and partly through a project, the Health Sciences Literacies Mapping Project, that was commissioned by the Deputy Dean of Undergraduate Studies in 2012 and 2013. We actually administered 78 questionnaires to undergraduate course conveners in the MBCHB on the one hand, and in the undergraduate degrees in the Department of Health and Rehabilitation Sciences. We are going to focus here, or I'm going to focus in this section on the academic literacies part of that survey, but there was also a section on health professions communication, digital literacies, and information literacies. And to a limited extent, we included quantitative literacy under the academic literacies component. So basically, we administered these questionnaires to the course conveners and asked them which literacies are expected of students in the courses that they teach. And we were trying to find out which of these literacies were explicitly taught in those courses. And when I speak about literacies, we really thought about sets of literacies. It was more areas of academic literacies or genres of academic literacy or particular academic literacies activities, like answering long answers, writing long answers, or writing short answers, writing MCQs, which is just a tick, but you need to do really detailed reading in order to do that. And then the longer genres, like writing a literature review or writing a proposal, including quantitative literacies into a longer argument, and so forth. And from the questionnaires, we drew up what we called literacies maps. We had 13 of these activities, areas, genres that required particular sets of literacies. And for each one of them, we developed a literacies map, which looked like this. So I'm not really expecting you to understand or read it or anything. But what you see there are vertically the 6 years of the MBCHB degree. There are 38, 36 courses. A course each is made up of 2 little bars, and the yellow that you see these courses would be a course that expects this particular set of literacies, which was assimilating knowledge from various sources, evaluating information that you draw from many sources. So you will see throughout the curriculum of 6 years, all the yellows would be courses that expected students to be able to evaluate information from many different sources. The red would be the courses where it was explicitly taught in the course. And you can see that it's much more widely expected than it's taught, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's taught very specifically in the first 2 years by a number of courses, and then it again in the 4th year, and then it sort of tailors off a bit. But what this literacy map enabled us to do was to look at the curriculum and work out how widely is a particular literacy expected and where is it taught, are there gaps, should we actually do some more teaching and in particular years, in particular courses. Are the courses where it's taught at the moment the best courses in which to do it? Obviously, if it's an elective and only a few students are going to do that course, it's not a good place to do some fundamental teaching of a set of literacy skills. So we have 13 maps of these different areas. And what the project really made us acknowledge and understand is the multiplicity of academic literacies that a student needs to navigate when doing an undergraduate or postgraduate degree in health sciences, and the need that there is for more explicit literacies instruction, but also the extent to which students bring their own prior knowledge, their own languages, their own practices from school or from their communities, and the role that that might play in some of the forms of writing that we expect of students in health sciences. For instance, if you look at the left-hand side here, reflective writing is a very big part of training in the health sciences. And Natasha is going to talk a little bit more about the context of the health sciences. So you equip someone to do reflective writing, which is so different from, for instance, writing a master's proposal, and obviously something like answering MCQs, which really just depends. You really just need to be able to be a very accurate reader and have the knowledge. So we became aware of the multiplicity of academic literacies in health sciences. And from there on, as coordinator of the language development group at the time, I became aware of the teaching development grant funding calls. We put in a proposal for that. Part of it was drawing up a monitoring and evaluation workbook, which we based on our experience on Upper Campus. We could appoint a coordinator and 4 postgraduate consultants, and you've seen that some of them are here today. And we could use the existing structures of the language development group on Upper Campus and the writing center that that group runs as well. But to some extent, it was a bit of a thumbsuck. We just used the writing center that we knew and sort of wrote a proposal thinking that we knew what we were getting into. But I'm going to hand over to Natasha, who's going to talk a lot more about the particular context that we then ended up working in.
Okay, thanks. Over the last 20 to 30 years, writing centres have become a fairly standard part of the university context. But even over that time frame, they've still remained spaces of contention. And to a large part, that seems to be underpinned by the sort of theoretical tensions that are inherent in the type of work we do. So trying to balance the institutional goals and massification of education against the individual needs of this diverse student population and the individual sort of nature in which academic literacies are acquired. So on one hand, you have these writing center spaces which can be sort of framed as incredibly democratic and diverse and inviting contestation and allowing students to kind of grapple with their own academic identity development. And then on the other hand, you have writing centers framed as teaching spaces that enable student access to the kind of valued literacy practices and conventions of the academy. And really, when we look at both of those two roles that writing centers can play, we can see that they are both actually important tasks, part of the decolonial project, and yet at sometimes they can be seen to sort of be in tension with one another. So one of the ways that we can try to sort of mitigate that tension and negotiate between these diverse goals is through the apprenticeship of students within discoursal communities. Another one of the kind of tensions that surfaces in theory around writing centers is this idea of central writing centers versus disciplinary writing centers. And Archer actually articulates this really beautifully when she says, one of the main challenges for writing centers is to provide access to academic and disciplinary discourses through making explicit how texts work in a critical manner, whilst at the same time inducting students into these discourses. So just that then, and world peace at tea time. And so because of these kinds of tensions, a lot of institutions and departments are turning to the idea of discipline-based support structures, because this obviously allows you to work from within a particular context to better enable student access to these discourses and to create better collaboration with the disciplinary specialists in those contexts. Now, obviously, discipline-based writing centers are not without their caveats. There are challenges associated with that. And if you have a look at the literature, what really surfaces is that there is no one right way to enact something like that. And really what's needed is a very careful reading of context. And the literacies mapping project that Amin described really provided that foundation for us. So if we look then more closely at health sciences as the context within which we work, we see that it is the largest faculty at UCT. There are over 1,500 staff and more than 4,000 students. And the disciplines within health sciences are actually quite diverse. So it's everything from medicine, nursing, health and rehabilitation, public health sciences, biological sciences. So there's quite a diverse array of disciplines that come within that faculty. But from an ideological perspective, the thing that unites these disciplines is the primary healthcare approach, which has been adopted by the faculty as a lead theme. And when you kind of unpack that approach a little bit, you can see it as a set of principles that really rests on the pillars of participation, inclusivity, and social justice. And those are certainly ideological principles that we feel very aligned to. And so we've been able to make a space for ourselves within health sciences. And we, as you can see, cannot really call ourselves a discipline-based writing center because we are administering to quite a diverse group of students and professions. So we see ourselves as multidisciplinary and multi-professional. But in fact, that's actually been quite a comfortable middle ground for us to inhabit. So we're in this space between the idea of the large institutional writing center, which is perhaps more well-resourced than the tiny little satellite center, which is embedded within a disciplinary context, but perhaps not well-resourced and not well-integrated. And so actually we found ourselves to be in a strategically valuable space, because now since October 2015, with the inception of the Department of Health Sciences Education, we have now become part of that department. And so we've got an academic home within the health sciences, which has really allowed us to work quite strategically and more explicitly with undergrads, postgrads, and staff across the faculty. The other thing that's been incredibly valuable for us over the last 3 years is having a dedicated physical space from which to work within the health sciences. So there is definitely literature that highlights the challenges that writing centers based within faculties or disciplines face, by not having physical space, and there's also literature about how important having that base to work from is. And so when health sciences came on, provided this custom renovated space for us, it really created a sense of identity and a place from which to kind of move forward within the faculty. So as a writing centre, we have a variety of activities that we engage in, and I just want to kind of highlight 3 of our core activities. So the first is the consultations that we provide. So this is the one-on-one teaching. And here we recognize that writing centres have a real opportunity to enable a sense of agency and ownership for each student or for each person as they engage with the writing centre over their own work, over their own identity development within the academy. And so for this reason, we frame everybody that comes to the writing centre as our clients. We don't see staff or students, but we see ourselves as offering a professional service. And we also see that our clients have a choice. They don't have to make use of our services. So the onus is on us to make what we offer valuable to each of our clients. We also try to, as far as possible, give clients a sense of choice about who they will work with within the writing lab and the language in which they will conduct those consultations. So we purposefully selected consultants that are able to translanguage, that are multilingual, and that gives clients more choice about how they engage with these literacy practices. We also maintain strict client confidentiality, which is different than other writing centres have chosen to do, because we see that that space needs to be owned by the clients, and it needs to be up to them how the consultation is conducted. And then finally, we always make the opportunity for feedback available to each of our clients once they've had a consultation. So we are prioritizing their experience of the consultation space, and we take that feedback very seriously. So if we look at our sort of numbers over the 3 years that we've been operating, you can see that not only have the numbers of consultations increased year on year, but so has our client base. And that's important to us because what that indicates is that clients are not just visiting once, they are making repeat consultations with the writing lab. And we think that that tells us not only that they value our service, that they're willing to come back and work with us again, but also that we are encouraging people to engage with the idea of the process of writing as opposed to the one-off quick fix engagement. And you can also see from this that we work widely across the undergrad and postgrad years, and to some extent with staff as well on a one-on-one basis. Our other major activity is workshops, and here we have prioritized the need for embedded teaching. So all of the workshops that we design are custom designed for the sort of course context within the curriculum space. So they are embedded within the teaching. And over the last 3 years, we've made a strategic move from kind of ad hoc one-off engagements to designing series of workshops for student engagement within a particular program. And that's been underpinned by the development of relationships with staff within the faculty. So as staff have seen what we've been able to do, have become comfortable working with us, and have trusted us with time that is fairly constrained within their curriculum to work with their students, we've been able to move away from the one-off towards the sort of ongoing engagement with students. And that's really allowed us to take a combined approach to teaching where we can teach to genre but also to process as well. And again, we are aware that even when we're in a workshop, how students learn to engage with literacy practices is still highly individualized. And so to try to really teach to every student in the workshop, we've taken a kind of a first principles structure and function approach. So instead of teaching formulae or conventional notions of a genre and how to recreate that genre, we've really tried to teach to the practices that underpin academic literacy practices and communication within an academic environment. And what this does is it kind of empowers the participants to be able to make choices about how they want to engage with these practices and how they want to communicate. And so we see this as part of empowering the individual to be able to take ownership of their own work. If we look at our workshop numbers, we can see, similarly to consultations, the numbers have increased significantly over the 3-year period. And importantly, again, we're not just working at the first year level, we are working across the years. And at each level, we have had increased engagement, particularly valuably at the staff level, as well as at the student level. And this in part has been to increasing requests on the part of staff for workshops, but also, as I said, from our side, pushing towards more ongoing engagement with students and looking for ways to kind of embed the teaching over the course of a curriculum. And then finally, to support both the consultation work and the workshops that we do, we embarked quite early on a process of kind of developing and curating a set of resources that would be customized for health sciences as a context. And so some of those resources were existing and we adapted them to the health sciences context. Other resources, such as those around reflective writing, really weren't available to us. And so we developed those resources as we went along. We make all of our resources freely available to download off our website. And at this point, we've got about 36 resources that we've put together. And then additionally to that, we've also had the opportunity to create customized resources for particular sites. So for example, the PG dip in health professions education, or the first year courses, becoming a professional, becoming a health professional. So that's been nice to be able to provide that kind of customized engagement for students in those places. And then following on that, we've also embarked on a resource translation project. So this is being quite heavily driven by our consultants at the moment. And this is really great because it gives them an opportunity to engage more deeply with the resources, but to also think about how to make these resources more available to students in multiple languages. So this is part of an ongoing project, and we also see this as contributing to kind of the decolonial work that we see ourselves doing.
Cool. So my name's Tahira. Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to take us through the monitoring and evaluation as part of our writing lab practices. As you know, it's very important for us to keep evaluating what we're doing to kind of progress our practices. So first of all, I just want to look at performance targets. So initially, when the writing lab was conceptualized, there were particular performance targets that were set. Okay, and Armin mentioned that this was based on upper campus, the model of kind of upper campus and the number of students that they had seen. So I've just highlighted that for you in purple over there. But as we can see over the 3 years, we've got some triumphs and we've also got some challenges. But when we look at those challenges, we don't look at them as almost deficiencies, because these were learning opportunities to actually help us realize that our writing lab and the writing practices are actually context-based. So for example, we may not have reached our targets for the number of workshops for our staff. However, we have seen, as Natasha showed in the workshop slide, that we've seen an increased number of staff attending workshops as postgraduate students and also attending workshops that we've held for undergraduates, so as their capacity as lecturers and disciplinary lecturers. So based on the upper campus model, you'll see for the goals for our undergraduate consultations and postgraduate consultations, we expected to see a lot more undergraduate consultations. But as you can see over the 3 years, it's actually flipped the other way. We've seen more postgraduate students, and that being the fact that the Faculty of Health Sciences has a large postgraduate cohort. And of course, in the undergraduate, there are limited writing opportunities. So like I said, I mean, these targets have been met in certain areas, but it has opened us to identify and also realize that our writing lab is context-based and it really depends on the writing practices and the number of students that we see. So if I take us through a little bit of how we actually monitor and evaluate our writing lab practices. So first of all, we've got two kind of main data sources. So we use a platform, a web-based platform for our writing lab consultations and booking processes, and it allows us to actually track the number of clients, monitor their progress from multiple kind of consultations, which degrees they belong to, and also, as Natasha mentioned, that after each consultation, the client can submit anonymous feedback, and the consultant can also submit their feedback. So in a way, we're evaluating their progress if they see us multiple times, and also we use the source of consultant feedback as a form of training as well, to kind of keep evaluating our practices, what's working, what's not working. If the student has seen us for 5, 6 times, is there progress in their actual writing practices? In terms of evaluation of our workshops, so we also have anonymous feedback that we get through Google Forms. So as you know, Google allows us and has a number of apps that we can use. So we've capitalized on this. And this process of evaluation of our workshops has really gone through a process of evolvement. So starting off with paper-based kind of workshop evaluations, now moving towards an online system, which also allows us to efficiently kind of track a number of workshop attendees, the number of workshops that we do as well. So just to share with you some feedback that we do get both from our workshops and our consultations, and it really shows the need and the value that we are adding from our consultations with our students, our staff members, and also our workshops. So things such as helping students work through issues that I had with my writing and gave them advice in such a way that they knew how to apply. Okay. The consultant was very articulate. He picked out a very salient issue in my journal-ready manuscript and some feedback from our workshops. I wish we'd have more of these workshops, and I can't tell you how many times we see that comment. And of course, this is an area that we're actively working with to increase the number of workshops, both amongst our staff and our postgraduates. And lastly, the last point is just the workshop changed the way I used to approach writing. And that is definitely what we as a writing lab are trying to inculcate, trying to show students the process of writing. It's not a once-off thing. And if we can do this across a series of workshops, we are definitely achieving our aim. I'm just going to hand over to Natasha to end us off quickly.
Sorry, I didn't know I was coming back. Okay, I know we're out of time. So just very briefly to say that we have been successful in securing funding for the next 3 years through a university capacity development grant, so our work will be able to continue. We have expanded our staff complement as one of our experienced consultants, Tahira, was appointed to an NGAP lectureship position and positioned within the writing lab. In response to client feedback, we've extended our operating hours, so we're now open until 6 every day. As I said, we have this ongoing resource translation project. We're also strategically focusing on increasing our embedded teaching across the undergraduate years. Beyond first and second year, we've already extended into third and fourth year in some of the degree programs. We are also participating in designing a structured support program for postgraduate students beginning their studies and beginning to place more emphasis on researching into the literacy practices that particularly postgraduate students are engaging with in a health science context. So lots of work ahead of us. Thank you.
Based on Tahira's statistics, and we noticed that there was a flip
Yeah. So look, I mean, we just presented a snapshot of some of the data. So we do have data on that, where our different students are coming from, what their primary languages are. So we have data on that, and that's actually something quite interesting that we could have a look at going forward. I mean, our sense at this point is that health sciences just has a really large postgraduate cohort, and also a lot of distance-based students and international students. So it could be a function of the kind of demographic of the cohort, but there's also possibly other things underpinning that, and that's something that we could examine in the future.